I remember a story my grandfather telling me about, 1974 when the Boldt decision was made. He said that was one of the worst things that happened to natives, he told me. And I was surprised. What do you mean, one of the worst things that happened to natives? The Boldt decision. He said, before that, we could go out and get as many fish as we wanted. There was no quota. We went and got out, we fished, and that's what we did. Once the Boldt decision went through and they came with the 50-50, all of a sudden our livelihoods changed. We were put on a quota system. And that was something that as Native people, there was never a quota system back then. My grandfather, I remember him telling me stories of, when he was a child going out in a rowboat out in the Swinomish Channel. They didn't have to go much further when he was a child. They could take the rowboat out in front of the family home and fish right off the beach year-round. Year-round. The fish would come in year-round. And so, fast forward to 1994. Shellfish has been a big part of the way I've made my living over the last 25 years. I crabbed pre-graffiti. I remember, I fished at 13 with my grandfather. By 16, I was running my own gill netter for my Uncle Doug Wilbur. And by 18, a couple of years of that, I was purse seining to make my living on Doug Wilbur's purse seiner. It was the Eagle 3. And some of the guys that we ran around with then was Larry Kinley, Jack Solomon, Carl Lane, a lot of Lummi guys that, we learned to fish from and to fish with in salmon. And that was a great time of my life. For me, purse seining I loved it. I loved being in the Salish Sea. I loved purse seining for salmon. And I remember back about 1992, I was fishing for Uncle Doug, and he said, well, you better buy a boat and some crab pots. There's this court case going on, with shellfish. You should buy a boat and some crab pots. So that's what I did. I respected and loved Uncle Doug. Goliath was his traditional name. And he was a legendary fisherman from Swinomish. So I went and got a boat and crab pots. I think that was 1992. And he also told me, you should enroll in the dive class. He says, that's going to be a big thing, gooey ducks and urchins. That's going to be a good way to make a living. The fishermen, the tribal fishermen are going to get a quota of that, and that's what you should do. So I did it. He was an elder of mine. I loved and respected what he had to say. I knew I wanted to fish for the rest of my life. And so I enrolled in dive courses. So we started crabbing, I did in 1992. I started commercial diving in 1993. And, of course, the Graffiti decision in 1994, 94 or 95. And that's what I have done ever since.